Hello, and welcome to the Heart of Collaboration. Thank you so much for allowing us into your viewing audience. We really appreciate you, and we hope that this will please you. I've been listening to a lot of people over the years, and so we have begun a series simply called Local Artist. Local artists who do many things, because the genres for art are vast, and so we have a great deal to be proud of right here in our own community, the award-winning Paducah, Kentucky, and then we have a great deal to be proud of historically and yet to come. Our guest for this episode is Nelvin, and he is the new coordinator, brand new, I would still say, of the arts and culture for the city of Paducah. Hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And thank you for coming. I know, when it's new, you're really busy, and things have not sort of, I guess, leveled off quite yet. Tell us a little bit, or as much as you want to, about your background. How did you come to Paducah? And then we'll move from there.
Yeah, great question, all around introduction for myself. So I'm actually from Kentucky. I'm from Eastern Kentucky. My father was a coal miner, and my mother worked several different jobs. She now works at the Kellogg's factory back in Pikeville, Kentucky. So I grew up in Eastern Kentucky, went to Morehead State University for my Bachelor's of Art, and then stayed to do a Master's of Art as well. And during that time I took courses in arts administration and arts entrepreneurship. After that I graduated, went to Kent State University in Ohio for a Master's of Fine Arts in Print Media. And so after all of the college, all of the classes, I found my way to Philbrook Museum of Art in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I was there as a programs coordinator for about a year, and then I moved up to Utah in Salt Lake City and was an outreach coordinator for the Kimball Arts Center. And my family had this running joke for a while that I'd have to go all the way around the globe before I'd find my way back to Kentucky. So I saw this position open up, and I always wanted to come back to Kentucky. It's my home. It's where my roots are. This wonderful appreciation of culture and community, and I really missed that in a lot of different ways. So that was always the goal, to come back. And I was like, I can't pass up this opportunity to go back to Kentucky. And finding out about Paducah's history, just in the sense of industrial, it reminded me of my family and what they did work-life wise. And then there's such a beautiful arts and cultural scene here. I wanted to really be a part of that history, and I really wanted to be a part of any of those partnerships and connections.
I've always thought, since I've been in the Paducah area, that there's something very remarkable about the connection between industry and art. Maybe juxtaposition, or maybe two contrary things, coming together the way that it does. It's really amazing to me. I'm a farm girl, moved around in the big city, and there are very few places that have that flavor that Paducah McCracken County has. And when you think about that, of course you're from Kentucky, but when you think about that, what are some of the advantages, would you say, for citizens and then non-citizens for that combination?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, for me, artists isn't just people who paint or draw or do sculpture. Anyone who has a creative thought, a creative inkling, is an artist. They just use it in a different way. They interpret it in a different format. So for me, Paducah, and since being here, I have met so many creative folks. And what's really great is that they're creative, they're very self-sufficient. They try and find ways of doing it themselves or working with others to get a goal accomplished or to see their vision happen. And I think that in itself is very unique, and very unique to Paducah, because there's some spaces and areas that wait. They wait for someone to appear, or they wait for X, Y, and Z event to happen. In Paducah, if people really want it, they find ways of doing it. And I think that's very clever and creative. And I think that's where you see both of those sides merged together.
Yes. Well, I know that you knew that Paducah is known for many things, art and culture. That includes the quilting, and we're known all over the world, actually. And so I'm very proud, even on my other show, that I always like to say the award-winning Paducah, Kentucky. I'm proud of that, and I know that you are already. Let's move then to what the coordinator of arts and arts and culture. Tell us what that's all about, and then go ahead and feel very free to go into things that you've already done, and then we'll talk about that a little bit and move forward from there.
Yeah. So I believe I've been here 4 months now. It's
just 4 months.
Just 4 months. So what was really great when I looked at this position and was doing research over Paducah, that the City Hall, the mayor, were very open to listening to the community, the creative community in general, and saying they seem that they need this. They see that there's something that needs to happen. And so they created the position. And they have even gone above and beyond that in their strategic plan, that there's a whole section dedicated to arts and culture initiatives to happen in the city of Paducah. And those are basically part of my job, is to make sure that they happen, and we achieve those goals for the people of Paducah. And so far, what that has basically meant for me is that I've gone out and I've met some wonderful folks who are creative, that are visual artists, musicians, poets. I even went and met with arts organizations, other nonprofits. And going to these, I'm asking questions of what do you need? What do you feel is lacking in the sense for professional development, artistic development? Because I want to make sure that, for one, there's that level of acknowledgement that everyone wants and needs. But to also go ahead and start assessing all the things that we need to be this great, wonderful city that we already are, but how do we go to being the best?
Indeed.
Right? And so as part of that, I've created this database. I have 200 creative names in it so far.
My.
And I know it's going to keep growing and
you
going.
know it.
And part of that, I've seen projects occur. So Paducah School of Art and Design, Tanya, who's the painting instructor there, her and the student art club that they have, they worked on the mural, the Defining Paducah event. And it was really great to go to, I think it was the second meeting by the time I got on board, and to see how involved the community is and how active they want to be and what they want to see. And being a part of, even if it's just the application and making sure permits go through, things like that is really wonderful. But when they went to go set it up on Broadway, I made sure I was there to help install, because it's a lot to do. And I'm the arts and cultural coordinator, so I want to make sure that even if I'm just there to be a cheerleader and be like, you can do it, you're going to get it done today, it's going to be up and great, then I'm going to be that support. Or if you need someone to hold the ladder or help put something up, or you need extra eyes, whatever it is, I want to be that individual. If folks need feedback or they need assistance in the sense of like partnerships, like if someone has an idea or a project, I could be that person, that liaison, that connector to be like, okay, well, that sounds like a goal or initiative of this organization. Let's try and reach out, or here's this information for you. Things like that. So that's what I've been doing.
Yes.
So far, I'm working on a public art project call, so hopefully that will be out in a couple of months. Working on another bigger event that will be out and about in a few weeks. So.
Well, then, as the coordinator, you're the glue. You're the glue between the city and everybody else, and you're the glue between all of the participants in these organizations. these arts-based and community-based organizations, and organizations that will collaborate with the non-arts organizations. For example, I won't get into a lot of detail because some things may change, but one of the target programs for Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority is the arts, and I'm blessed to be the chair of that committee. And I think we were the first organization outside of the arts organizations that contacted you to make a connection and create relationships. But what our emphasis is the Harlem Renaissance and the Black Arts Movement, and then to intertwine other art within our community and to work with you and through you, and follow your lead, as a matter of fact, in order for us to fulfill the goals for this target program, and then at the same time connect as a Greek organization, and then set the example for other or service organizations, because that's what we are. We're a service, faith-based organization. Part of our mission statement is service to all mankind. And so we had the pleasure, of course, as you know, we've met with you, and we've got your blessings, we have the blessings of others, and so we're so happy that you're here because we're going to be able to extend our presence, and not for ourselves, but for our community and even in the region, because, as you know, Paducah is not an island. Paducah is its own community, and yet it is in very close proximity of other great people and great organizations, and so we're looking forward to being a part, or at least a little part, of that pulling together of things, and we're so happy that you're going to be our fearless leader. So in terms of the Harlem Renaissance, the Harlem Renaissance lasted for about 20 years. The Black Arts Movement lasted for about 10 years. But because Renaissance and arts movements didn't just stop, you know, with migration and cultural migration, and with industrialization going on to a greater level, it didn't just stop. So I like to say we're living in the essence of the Harlem Renaissance and the Black Arts Movement, because all art is everybody's art. So we all get to appreciate that. Having said that, what are some of your goals that you've set as the coordinator of arts and culture?
Oh gosh, just specifically with my position, or with our
your
partners?
position.
My position. Okay. So some of the goals that I have set is that, oh gosh, everything is, I'm in this weird space where things are about to come out to public, but it's not in that space. I've been really, from the feedback I've gotten, so I've interviewed about 20 creative folks, 9 organizations, 3 creative arts businesses, and through these conversations, the things that keep popping up in the sense of what they want out of development is very business oriented, whether it's e-commerce, business proposals, business plans, advanced workshops and skill set. All of them have said something of some similarity. So that tells me that this is definitely a need.
Absolutely.
And so part of me is that I'm looking at previous mentors, colleagues, and researching what I can over creative industry and what needs to happen so artists can feel empowered. What are the current issues happening nationally that is limiting artists from either being their own business person or using their creativity that doesn't have to rely on necessarily just making art, but they can, for instance, work for local government and still use their creative skill set. So I've been putting a lot of time and effort into that, and that has been going very well and very great in the sense of productivity and where it's going. I wish I could talk more about it at the moment. That aside, I want to create public programming, public projects, One is about to come out in the next couple of months that will be a call out for artists to, they're able to do sketches and then they'll get to create work, and that will be out in public spaces, but with a little bit of a twist. On top of that, other projects that I want to do, I really want to do a lot of focus with health and safety within communities.
Oh.
So when I worked at Philbrook Museum of Art, one of the programs I coordinated was called Art Focus, and it is a program that is for folks with Alzheimer's and/or dementia and their care partners.
Wow.
So they would come into the museum, we would pick an art piece or two, and we would have a conversation about it. Because typically what happens is that people come into a museum, they get kind of a lecture, they kind of feel a disconnect, and it's like, well, I'm not smart enough, or I don't feel like I could connect to that when someone just tells you, like, in 1825, this so-and-so person. It's not relatable. It doesn't have a relevance. So when these individuals would come in, we would have a conversation. So if we had an art piece, I'd be like, well, what do you see? And we would talk about legitimately and literally what you see. Like if you saw the color red, someone wearing a dress. And then we'd be like, well, what does it make you think? What does it make you wonder? Sometimes it would create a story, this interesting narrative. These individuals sometimes would reflect back to a past moment of their own experience, and it was so great. I would have folks then who would say, that's the first time that, you know, my mother, my grandmother had said anything in months. And we would go make an art piece and give them a level of autonomy and ownership, but it's also, it's almost like a neutral space. You get to have your moment that's not part of a hospital schedule or a hospice schedule. You just get to get to play, get to make, have a cookie or two. And it's been proven that art and health go side by side. Whether we're talking about folks who have Alzheimer's or dementia, individuals on the autism spectrum, folks suffering from PTSD, things like that. I have a real fascination might not be the best word. I have a real connection or commitment to this idea of art and healing.
Yes.
And I feel like Paducah is also in that space. We have so many wonderful hospitals, so many programs. We have artists that talk about their own lived experiences and how they use their art for social services and things like that. So I feel like that's just a natural link at some point for us to do.
Yes. 2 major hospitals and several, I guess I don't like to say nursing homes, but for the sake of everybody understanding what we're saying, we have several nursing homes. We have excellent rehab centers, many men and women in the medical field, and this is a good place for you to do that. I'm not sure, I don't think that's ever been done in Paducah, has it? Using the arts and the health.
I talked to Donna Raines at Baptist, and Kisa Hausman has done quite a few things with cancer survivor patients, and they have several other programs that they've done. So I think Paducah has been in a place where they've done it. So how do we push forward?
How do we push forward? Yeah, we'd all like to know about it. And thank you, Donna Raines. I remember her in the Paducah City School District, and you looked at me waving at her. Listen, we all do it. We do it. We do it. We'll, you know, we want them to know we're giving them a shout out. But one of the amazing things that, and I'll just pick on Donna Raines for a minute, she is a very innovative lady with her little self. But she's always thinking, and then there's another lady at another hospital, and they're just real brilliant. So you're going to be working with some good people who have a wide vision. And they know how to bring things together. So you're in good company with Donna and a couple of other sweet ladies. Now, for any other I know what I wanted to ask you. A few minutes ago, you talked about how arts is more than just visual or doing something in the physical or using a physical talent, but you start with an idea. You're looking at creativity. You use the word creativity, and then you connected creativity with industrialization. Well, I'm a country girl, I'm a farm girl. The first vehicle I drove was a John Deere, the big one. John Deere tractor. You know anything about John Deere tractors? I love you. And I remember Daddy saying, Daddy had a 4th grade education and still the most brilliant man I ever knew. May God rest your soul, Daddy. But he said, the people who made the John Deere tractors are artists. I thought about that for a while. I think I was about 9, and I wanted him. I always looked up at Daddy, and I thought he was the tallest man on the planet. I looked up. I said, "Well, Daddy, tell me what that means." And he said, "We walked around the tractor, and I touched all the parts that were visible, and then he raised up the hood. And I looked at all those parts, and he says, God is the artist of all." And God, who's the artist of all, placed his artistry on the inside of us. And he said, so this just isn't manufacturing, Bernice. He said, this is art. And my daddy was the first person who taught me about art. And then later, of course, in elementary school and high school, we didn't have middle school. That's how way back in the country a long time ago I was in early school. But I wanted you to know that. And then I wanted to say that I wonder how many kids and adults have passed by all that metal and all those pieces of old farm equipment that's sort of just laying in a ditch somewhere or by a pond. And I wonder what they think about all that, and I wonder if you got your hands on it, what would happen to it?
Oh gosh, I don't know what I would do with it, but I would know who to give it to and some potential things that they could make. Yeah. I sometimes get in that space of like, I know what to do for my artwork and what looks and how it needs to be. When I see other materials, and for instance, let's say you were someone who liked to work in metal, I'd be like, oh, you know, that metal's really great. What would happen if you let it rust? What kind of colors would it make? What would that look like together? I'm a big fan, and I have to give credit to Kent State and the professors I had there, who really pushed this notion like, you have to explore, you have to experiment, because that's the only way you're going to know what works and what doesn't. And I think that's very true to life. You have to like experiment, fail a little bit, so you know what works and what succeeds. So.
Well, in visual arts, it doesn't have to make literal sense to everybody, does it?
No.
What is the essence of visual arts to any artist?
Oh gosh, that is like a deep theory question. For me, art is something that makes you think. It makes you ask questions. I try not to give everything to individuals when they look at my artwork. So, for instance, you could see it and be like, okay, well, I don't know exactly what Nelvin's trying to tell me, but this is what I'm seeing, and this is how it connects back to me. I want people to ask questions. I want them to connect. It's really me trying to connect with folks who I can't see, and vice versa. So for me, art just has to make you ask questions. And I feel like if it doesn't make you ask anything, then I don't know. It's still art. Yeah. But I think it's missing like a great component for conversation. Yes. Or some level of connection, whether it's the person and the artist, or the person who came with them to the museum or to the show. This like investigation of sorts, or the experience. I've been to these shows where there's video on every single wall and floor and bottom. And it's not my cup of tea, but I do enjoy, and it makes me think. It makes me be like, okay, I don't know where I'm at. I don't know what's the floor and what's the ceiling. It makes me have to rethink about everything. Yes. And I think that's what's really great about art. People can see something. It could be an idea that's already been seen, but the interpretation, the reinterpretation is what's really exciting. Interpretation and reinterpretation. I had to remember those two terms when I'm talking to people and promoting things in our city, in our county. And then the art.
so many. Art is a huge genre, and so many breakdowns. We have music, we have singing, we have instrument. We have visual arts. We have photography. We have sculpturing. We have pottery. Cooking is an art. Quilting. What else? What else? Oh my God!
I would say brewing's even an art.
Yes, yes.
All the things that people think are crafts, they're crafts, but they're still art.
Yeah.
For me, there's no distinction between a craft and an art. Craftsmen seem like they're very for the technical versus the interpretation, but it's still art.
Yes. So that ought to be very encouraging to a number of people who, for whatever reasons, have been placed in a box in terms of art. That this series, Local Artists, in essence, bottom line is we want to open up the windows and the doors and all the vents. We want to open up everything so that people see art with greater vision.
Yes.
And they know who the men and women are in our community who are leading us in the directions of art, of the whole thing. And that those mamas and grandmamas and big mamas at home, all those homemade things that you make from scratch and all that, that's art. Sewing, making your own clothes is a form of artistry. And if you just make quilts just for yourself, you know, just everything, hairstyling,
Yes.
makeup, it's all art.
And you know, art can be a product. Like you can make something that's quote unquote value for money, but there's also value in just making art in the sense of just making and just for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really great. And to going back into like what's art, I think for folks who can think of an ideal for like an app or a technology or someone who can write the code for it, that is art. That is a language all on its own.
Absolutely. We have a couple of minutes before we have to say goodbye. I told you this time will pass so quickly, but tell us just a little bit about the art that you brought with you.
Yeah, oh gosh. So my artwork is about lived experiences. So my identity, my family, place, sense of belonging, what that is. So I come from Eastern Kentucky, Central Appalachia. My grandparents were home to me. Sadly, they passed away. Their house and belongings burned down.
Oh my.
And so when I went,
Bless your heart.
it was a very sad moment. For me, that was a very happy high mark of childhood and life. When I went to Kent State, I felt very homesick, but not to home, but to like my grandparents' home. And so I started to draw this persona, this character of me with a house on her head. And so it created this whole narrative, storytelling. So with that, basically, there are all these different personas of myself that live within this imaginary world trying to coexist together.
Yes, yes. And so art can be, ladies and gentlemen, art can be about your experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that you can express in poetry. Oh yes, we did poetry, acting, writing, videography, like Brandon, who's in the studio right now taking good care of us, and Tom Butler, who's the executive director, and Dan Shepard, who makes sure helps to make sure things are right. These guys are artists, but they won't call themselves that. Sometimes people won't call themselves what they are because they think it's taking too much of a privilege, but that's not true. Everything that has an idea, that means something, that has value, is art.
And it's very valid.
Valid and valuable. Thank you, Nelvin.
Thank you.
My friend, my new Paducah baby. Thank you for tuning in to the Heart of Collaboration.